Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast and live stream. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with David Finkelstein, BDEX's founder and CEO. What's new, David?
Hey, Jesse. Weather's nice, so I'm outside. That's what's new. Yeah, it's good. Just good to be able to have a different setting, be able to spend a little time outside. It's not as hot. I'm in Southwest Florida, so it can be really hot, but only about 80 degrees out today, so I'm sitting outside.
Nice. I heard you say earlier the low this morning was like in the high 60s. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
our high was in the high 60s here in
Yeah.
Ohio. But yeah, anyway, yeah, seasons are changing, but we have yet another great episode of Deconstructing Data planned, and another great guest. And we're thrilled to welcome on today Ashleigh Cook. She is the CMO of RainFocus. Welcome to the show, Ashleigh.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Jesse and David.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you could join us on the show today, Ashleigh, and we're excited to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners. So why don't you kick us off and give us a little bit about your background, what led you to become CMO of RainFocus, and what you guys are doing for your customers today?
Sure, you bet. So Ashleigh Cook, CMO at RainFocus. I actually started my career in the research and advisory space. So I've worked with Gartner, Sirius Decisions, and then with Forrester through the acquisition of Sirius Decisions. And in my time there, really spent the majority of that time running marketing campaigns and programs. And I'd say one of the things that just captivated me over my career in research and advisory was looking at kind of what underpins organizations' success in terms of outperforming their competition. And for me, it kind of came down to a couple of key areas, and that centered around sales, marketing, and product alignment. And events is one of the core elements of that was a driver of that alignment across those groups in terms of generating pipeline, accelerating opportunities, increasing conversion rates, velocity, and then ultimately leading to customer retention and some of building that long-term loyalty with your customers. So that was an area that was propelled my passion, which was events. And what brought me to RainFocus was looking and seeing the work that RainFocus was doing in terms of truly disrupting the events industry in terms of the mission that they had set out to really accomplish. And I think we all know for many years, events have been siloed within organizations where, data that is coming, the rich behavioral data that's coming out of those events is largely untapped. It's sent to sales and marketing teams, weeks after the event. The content goes to waste before it can be leveraged in different channels. And that's an area where RainFocus has really driven the industry with some of the world-class customers that and brands that we work with. And it's all around how do you better connect events, connect and integrate events into the broader customer journey and be able to leverage that so that marketing teams can activate those in real time with sales and marketing programs and ultimately see better results. So excited to be here and a bit on my background.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to this conversation because we talk a lot about customer journeys. We talk a lot about sales and data and marketing and how all this ties together. But honestly, 180 episodes, I don't think we've talked about events. And it's really interesting to me to sort of dive into that and how, what you guys are doing to sort of enable the data that comes from events with respect to that customer journey. So I'd love to sort of jump right into our first topic, the customer intelligence, leveraging first-party data smartly. Tell us about this topic. What does this mean to you guys, and what are you doing to help leverage first-party data?
Yes. So a bit of background on RainFocus. So we, as I mentioned, we fundamentally have shifted or kind of flipped the script in terms of how events are run and really focused on it from the perspective of how do you better integrate events into the customer journey so that you're not just leveraging the data points within an event, but you're able to capture those signals from the customer journey, use those to enrich the attendee experience that they're having at your event. And ultimately, some of the event and engagement signals from your event, how do you leverage those to enhance or propel the customer journey? So here at RainFocus, we power everything from registration, attendee personalization, content management, exhibitor activation, sales enablement, and onsite for in-person, hybrid, and virtual experiences. And part of our core as part of that is looking for ways and ultimately capturing all of the behavioral and data signals that are harnessed or used throughout an event. So that could include things like a check-in, someone who attends a session. It could include folks that visit a booth or have a demo or conduct a one-on-one. We are capturing all of those behavioral signals and integrating those into an organization's marketing and sales tech stack that makes it immediately actionable by those sales and marketing teams. And so ultimately that helps drive just better results. I would say just one of the things as you look at some of the first party data that you are capturing, there's a couple of really interesting trends and data points that are out there. I've seen some studies out there that events are one of the most efficient and effective channels for a number of different reasons. So the average event generally consolidates or is comprised of anywhere between 5 and 20 touch points that are condensed into a single experience. When you think of how long this could take in terms of capturing those data signals digitally, that could take months for many brands. So there's a unique opportunity that events provide in terms of building all of those behavioral and data signals and condensing that into a time period where you know it will be timely for that organization or for those buying group members. I'd also add that RainFocus, we've conducted our own study across our customer data, looking at their events just to see the level of engagement over the course of their events. And on average, a multi-day conference, generally, it will generate over 800 minutes of engagement for an individual. And so that's an incredible amount of opportunity and exposure that a brand has to engage and ultimately win over or build a loyal customer with that particular member. And then add to that, there have been some studies with LinkedIn and others that have shown that the number of buying group members that are involved in a decision process has actually increased to well over 22. So 22 buying group members involved in a purchase decision. And what's unique about events is when you go to one, you generally see clusters of individuals or colleagues or teammates that go to those events. And keep in mind that over 800 minutes of engagement for a single individual, well, when you combine that with the number of buying group members and individuals from an account that are there over the course of a few days, that's an unmatched amount of data and engagement and signals that marketing and sales can use to accelerate folks where they are in their journey. So massive amount of opportunity there.
Yeah, that's huge. And the fact that before we went live, you and I were talking about, you were talking a little bit about this, and you were talking about how this industry, in the events industry, historically, the data has been so siloed. And so that has pretty much prevented the ability to, engage at this level, right? Mm-hmm. And so share with us a little bit more about that, because I think that there's a big transformation here from going from this siloed data where it could take weeks or months to sort of re-engage with, event attendees, as opposed to now when it's really just becoming part of the customer journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the areas that has been driving that to a large degree are just fragmented technologies. And I think we saw a proliferation over that, especially around 2020, 2021, where folks were scrambling to purchase point solutions that would solve for their immediate need. And what was missing just in that opportunity was taking a step back and thinking more holistically about the data, what you ultimately need, who are the right stakeholders to involve in that process to ensure that you have your customer truly at the center of your data strategy. And I think that's really where it starts, is having the right stakeholders to drive that decision and looking at ways to centralize that data and ensuring that your systems are feeding into a centralized spot where you are able to truly harness that data. And you're exactly right. I think it's been just a transformation of the events industry over the last few decades. And it's common, exactly what we have seen with marketing automation tools as well over the last few decades, in terms of how they have really progressed in terms of things that they handle and focusing on more of that centralization component. But yeah, we found that that centralization and the integration of those data points with core marketing and sales tech has been key, whereas sometimes organizations either the tech does not integrate seamlessly, it doesn't integrate in real time, it may be clunky, it may have some errors, or there are those opportunities where it just hasn't been figured out from a data strategy in terms of how that data is to be leveraged and what are kind of the core sources for that. So I think it's brought some renewed focus. And I think especially over the last few years with marketing operations coming to the table and being more involved in the purchase decisions, it's really driven the right discussion to get the data into the right places where it can be harnessed for sales and marketing programs, but also being able to leverage the data that already exists to fuel event marketing programs too.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's wild. And actually, when you're talking about leveraging the data, that sort of leads me into our next topic, because you're talking about in the next topic, event personalization. And so I'd love to understand a little bit more about this and how you're using the data to enhance the customer experience through personalization.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think personalization starts with some of the foundations that we all know as marketers. And I think it comes down to ultimately understanding who your customers are, what they want, and truly knowing your audience. So there's a number of key factors or attributes that we've seen organizations who have been incredibly successful, like the types of things that they are leveraging. So one, I think it's important to look at some of the macro trends out there, just in terms of generational preferences and some of the data and studies out there, and mapping that to, what does your event audience look like? There's certainly generational preferences for Gen Zers who are becoming one of the biggest or the largest constituents in some events. And they have just different preferences in terms of their digital natives. They're looking for seeking out those authentic connections with opportunities for learning and upskilling and more interactive focused sessions. So I think certainly generational preferences and just some of those elements come into play. I'd also say looking at the registration fields or registration attributes that you are collecting throughout your event process. And what we've found with customers is when they come to your event, if they've attended a previous event, they don't want to give you the same information over and over. You shouldn't be asking for the same fields if they've provided that in the past, unless something has meaningfully changed. And so I think it's important to, bring up and show what you already know about that particular person or that individual, and being able to share, hey, has anything changed or things that you want to update? It also reduces friction and just barriers to entry in terms of building the event experience with them early on. And I think the personalization aspects, they start with your audience well before the event begins. So in that registration path, that's just one example. Like, how do you show the individual that what you already know about them and what is going to make this a more effective experience and meaningful experience for them too. We've also seen organizations deploy things like pre-event questionnaires asking about certain, topics of interest or activities that they want to engage in, or even feedback on topics or presenters in other areas, and think that this really helps in terms of just curating and dialing in the right experience for your attendees before they come on site. And I do think an element too is it's important in those personalization elements to show that you are using that to provide added value to them when folks are on site or when they're attending virtually. So I'll give an example of, surprise and delight gestures is how do you use what you know about individuals that they have given you or things that you can collect on them to really deliver an experience that is an exceptional one, and stands out for them in a meaningful way. So we had our head of events who headed out to an event, and it was for a particular venue, and they knew a fair amount about him in terms of just key preferences and things that he liked. And one night when they know that he had a long day, they delivered Taco Bell to his room because they knew that that was one thing that he really enjoyed and would give him, a ton of satisfaction in terms of, having that opportunity there. So that was just one example of a surprise and delight that just goes over the top. And it, again, the whole point of experiences is creating that impact, that meaningful experience for individuals that creates a lasting memory and impact on them with that particular brand. So I think that that's certainly one of the key areas with that. And then I would say with just personalization, some of the ways that RainFocus is supporting that is just in terms of the bi-directional integrations that we have with leading marketing and sales tech stacks. We are collecting the data from a customer journey that enables individuals to personalize those elements through an event. So an example of that are session recommendations, where we're not just pulling form fields that individuals give us based on demographics or firmographics. It's ultimately pulling from a couple of those fields, but if they've attended events in the past, what are topics, what are activities that they've taken part in, and then using that data to really deliver personalized recommendations on things that they should partake in for the upcoming event. And I think that's what ultimately drives the experience for individuals. It's not sorting through the content catalog of 300 plus sessions and trying to figure out where they want to go next. It's how do you prescribe the right journey for attendees at events so that they can focus on getting the most value out of being there.
That's cool. I love the surprise and delight concept, especially as opposed to the whole, I'll call it the doctor's office experience of filling out an intake form, right? And that looks just like the same information that you gave last time you were at this event. Mm-hmm. And so why are you having to complete it all again? So, everybody gets frustrated at the doctor's office. You got to complete these forms that everything's the same from last time. Why can't you just say it's all the same?
Yeah.
So you're definitely, even that is a surprise and delight sort of experience. If you can register for an event and the information's already there and you're like, okay, cool. Now I don't, this is so much easier than I thought it was going to be.
Exactly.
I'm sort of curious, I loved how you were mentioning having a seamless journey of what data they're entering and making sure they don't have to enter data multiple times. But what do you do like at a physical event to, make sure that you're collecting information when you're in person? We're kind of going back to the old age of like clipboards and paper. Or are you using scanners, QR codes? Like what do you do?
Yeah, so we've seen a couple of different ways for that to be handled. So RainFocus, within our platform, we have a native mobile app. We also partner with a number of mobile app providers that enable individuals when they go on site to an event or when they're attending virtually, they can download the mobile app, they can click into a particular session, and then they're auto prompted with session surveys as part of it so that they can give their feedback. That's a key area that we've seen. We've also seen folks use QR codes through various providers where they can provide their feedback through that as well. And again, it's a great way to gain that feedback early on so that you can adjust in real time. I know some of the sessions may be a bit harder to adjust, but overall conference feedback and surveys just in the moment, that's really the time where it generates the most value in terms of being able to act on that in real time and ensure that you're building a great experience for your attendees. But yeah, we've managed it that way just through surveys and feedback there. And then also just some of the real-time data that's being captured throughout an entire event. So we capture all of the check-in data, the session attendance, booth visits, so that you can gauge traffic and just overall engagement of individuals throughout that event. That we provide real-time dashboards where you can look at just the activity levels that you're driving as part of that event, which we find is always a key area for critical executive stakeholders to get a view into early on, so that you drive the right behaviors when you're there in the moment.
So
That's awesome.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Well, unless there's anything else to add on event personalization, enhancing customer experience impactfully, or anything else we've shared so far on customer intelligence and first-party data, the third topic is AI in marketing, transforming engagement and strategy. Would you like to kick off this topic, Ashleigh?
Sure, happy to. So I think AI has presented just an enormous amount of opportunity for marketing organizations, especially when it comes to events. Some folks out there may say that, hey, AI has fundamentally disrupted marketing and events. But I think it's really helping to enrich and augment the experiences that individuals and audiences have with brands. It's really it really creates an incredible opportunity for brands to interact. We've actually partnered with the Event Leaders Exchange, and there was some interesting data that they collected and recently released out there. And they did a study around AI and just how folks were using AI. And they found that 69% of event leaders were using AI currently. And so that had just market improvements or significant increases over last year when they were collecting the survey early on. And so within that, that's great. Like, folks are coming up to speed, they're adopting it. And so incredible there. But the one thing is, when they dug a bit deeper into the different use cases for AI, they found that the vast majority of those use cases were around content creation, copywriting, and supporting with optimizing just some of the admin components of their roles. And I think that's where the real opportunity comes through, is not just using AI for more of the tactical elements, but leveraging it for more strategic uses as well. So a couple of the areas that just points to is, how do you use AI just to personalize the experience for your stakeholders? And how are you able to leverage AI on things like predictive recommendations and even predictive data analysis? So I think those are some of the key trends that we're seeing in terms of just those opportunities for more strategic uses of AI. And we here at RainFocus, we run it through a couple of different lenses in the way that we think about AI. So we think about it through our own internal operations and ensuring that, we are championing that effort internally and drinking our own champagne. and using it full stop in terms of building those enablement, the right training, and then sharing those best practices across the organization as part of some of that experimentation and proven use cases. And then we also view it through our own customer lens in terms of how do we help them be more efficient in their day-to-day, streamlining the workflows and the tasks that they do to really stand up a pure exceptional experience or event experience as part of that. And then we also look at it through the end user experience and how are we dialing up the right content, the right sessions at the right time for individuals based on where they are in their journey as part of that event. So those have really been the three lenses that we have looked at it through. And then the three core pillars as part of that are, internal operational excellence, so really using and supporting and championing that internally. But then we also look at it from a client perspective in terms of how do we help them be more efficient in creating those experiences and not necessarily looking at more of a way to interact with, but really shaping agents that they can collaborate with in the long term and on an ongoing basis. And then the last one is really the platform ecosystem. It's been our intent since day one with our AI strategy to not build a walled garden, but rather an interoperable open AI framework that collaborates with other agents so that we can really fuel the event marketing future. So that's been how we have approached AI a bit. We have partnered with a number of leading brands with their own proprietary AI technology and frameworks. And so we've been experimenting with them over the past 18 months. And there have actually been some really cool findings that we have in terms of some of the session recommendations that we've collaborated on those agents with. And what we found is that when individuals at this one large scale event, when they collaborated or asked or got some of the session recommendations that was fed through the RainFocus platform and this brand's AI, their proprietary tech in the data, we found that they were actually 30% more likely to show up to a particular session or a meeting that was suggested to them. And so when you think about the impact of AI in building those personalized experiences at scale, when you're able to demonstrate the ROI and the increased engagement that you get as a result of that, that's really where you're able to see the impact and where the investment is well worth it in terms of being able to advance that forward. So we've seen some incredible results early on with just some of the areas where we have been working on brands with, and excited also on some of the strategic uses of AI as well, like data analysis, predictive analysis to help showcase, what will folks do after they, interact with a demo or they go visit with certain exhibitors or go to a certain session. I think that's a really interesting component of it. And then one of the other use cases that we have had great success and feedback on is our data sentiment analysis, where previously, organizations would get the session and the survey feedback at the end of the event. They would mine through it and try and go through or identify some of the key themes or opportunities for future optimization. And our sentiment analysis enables organizations to essentially centralize that and quickly identify and summarize some of the key areas that come from their feedback surveys. And that helps them to quickly, turn those insights into actionable takeaways that they can incorporate into their next event that they have with customers.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that like the survey results that you mentioned early on are really similar in a lot of industries. There's a lot of people that are using AI, but when you dig deep, you find out that they're really just using it on the surface level, right? They're just using it for some content or for copy editing, maybe to improve a process here or there. but to really embed AI into, building or improving the customer experience, things like that, it's a lot more in depth, right? I mean, it takes a lot more data, it takes a lot more training, it takes a lot more of understanding and integration. And so, a lot of companies aren't there yet. They haven't made that investment yet. It's great to see you guys have, and because you have, you're seeing the results, right? You're seeing, improved results from that, and your customers are seeing improved results from that, and it's fantastic. I think that we're going to see more and more of that across many industries over the next, year, 2, 3. It takes time for people to really fully, figure out how to do all of that. But there's more and more companies like yourself that are sort of democratizing that and making these, this type of technology more accessible to companies, as part of in their everyday life. So, that's one of the wonders of AI, I think it's only going to continue to improve, and hopefully continue to improve the customer experience across many industries. So it's great.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, then I guess if there's anything else to add on AI and marketing and transforming engagement and strategy, we can move on to tech stack. But I'm glad that we touched on this, because all too often people like to jump into the tactics before we really think about strategy. So I'm glad you mentioned like understanding your audience and
Yep.
your messaging and all the really important stuff.
Yeah, I think oftentimes folks jump into AI and do AI for AI's sake, but it really requires an organizational data strategy more holistically in terms of, you know, deploying AI right requires you to have centralized data in the right places that you can really pull from to build and enrich those experiences that you're fueling through AI. So I think that that's oftentimes a bit of an overlooked area in terms of getting your data strategy, getting the right stakeholders to the table, and really identifying the areas for opportunity and structuring the data in the right way to be able to leverage AI again responsibly, and then being able to use that to harness it for the greatest advantage for organizations. And I think those that are thinking about it holistically and reaching across the aisle and building that cross-functional alignment to build AI, not just in an organization, but to truly use it to transform how they think about their customers and how they're building those journeys for their customers. I think that's where it really comes to fruition.
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes back to those data silos we talked about. You can't really do all of what we're talking about here. You can't have a true AI or data strategy if your data is siloed in 5, 10 different places. It has to be centralized, and it has to be organized in order to get there. And so that probably is one of the sort of stumbling blocks that companies have in order to be able to sort of think about the strategy. They first have to get through over that hurdle.
Oh, for sure.
Definitely. Well, this has been a great conversation, but we have to make sure that we cover tech stack, because this is something we ask all the guests who come on Deconstructing Data. And we can't wait to hear from you about your favorite tools in your tech stack that empower you and your team, Ashleigh.
Cool. Yeah, I'll frame it in through a couple of different lenses. So I would say your standard ChatGPT, Gemini, Notebook LM, those are part of our core tech stack in terms of enabling us in just our day-to-day workflows. So supporting everything from ideation, content creation, and support there. But then we've also been able to shift just our thinking in the way that we leverage it for more strategic uses, like data analysis, helping with some of our closed loss analysis by vertical, or looking at opportunities within the buyer's journey to help kind of frame out some of those frame out and identify some of those key themes that we're finding as part of those. And then we're also using it just for some of the predictive recommendations or analysis that we can see just based on some of the data inputs that we're putting in there. So that's how we're shifting the way we think about that. And then, as mentioned, within the organization, have had a number of different groups and in work groups that are really focused around one, building the right training for our entire organization to get everyone up to speed on what is AI, how do we use AI responsibly, and then what are different ways to take advantage of AI to improve our own efficiency as a company. So have been really focused on just some of those governance and training and enablement pieces. And then we know we want to share with folks as well across the organization just some of the workflows or experimentation with new use cases. We're documenting that and we're sharing that in terms of the results that we're seeing, as well as just different areas that folks may not be considering in terms of how they use those tools. So I think it's important just to champion that and advocate and build some awareness and share those best practices across the organization. So we do that within marketing, but then also share with other teams across the organization as well. And so it's been a really neat one just to learn there. I'd also say Gong has been our go-to, which is for go-to-market enablement. And so it helps in terms of cataloging and tracking all of our outreach efforts from a sales standpoint, but it also captures a lot of the customer and prospect and partner conversations that are taking place with our sales team. And that provides just a number of great details that we can take advantage of from a sales, marketing, and product standpoint. So from the sales standpoint, it helps in terms of sales coaching and also putting together things like objection handling, or what are the most common questions that come up in some of these types of sales calls. From a marketing standpoint, we are using it, especially when we're working within newer verticals for us or engaging with different types of stakeholders or personas or titles. We're capturing all of those pieces so that we can capture what are some of the key themes that resonate with those personas, with those particular verticals or types of organizations. And we're feeding that back into our marketing campaigns and messaging so that we can be more effective in terms of it comes down to understanding your audience, right? Understanding the personas that are engaging with your brand. It helps provide just overall themes that we can incorporate and message as part of our framework there. So using that as part of it, and also using it to optimize some of our existing campaign messaging too. And then from a product standpoint, these types of sales calls are rich with insights into opportunities for product in terms of market feedback on how certain things are named, how product features and capabilities resonate with certain buyers and different verticals. So it's been rich from that standpoint to be able to catalog that from a prospect standpoint. And then from a customer standpoint, also readily enables us to capture just some of the customer feedback in terms of overall sentiment, but also feedback on the product that we are ingesting and then feeding back to our product and client success teams. So certainly a key driver in that. So that's one of my favorite for go-to-market enablement. And then I would be remiss if I didn't mention RainFocus just as our own tool. I think one of the really neat opportunities, and just given where we are and where we sit in this space, we work with many of the world's leading brands, and it's always important that with our events, we are setting the standard in terms of what is possible, but also pushing the limits in terms of trialing new things, being early adopters of some of the new product capabilities so that we can showcase those to our clients. So that's one of my favorites. We have our annual user conference, which is coming up in January, and excited to unveil a number of new enhancements and capabilities out to our customer base. But that's one of the areas that always is an incredibly exciting one for us. Being an events software company that runs events for many of the world's leading brands, it's an opportunity for us to showcase and push the envelope in collaboration with our customers' feedback. So it also gives us the opportunity to give some early feedback to product and refine and continue to develop the right products that meet the market need there. So that's my favorite one there. And then one of our more recent partners, Voxo, is an incredible company that helps with AI, their AI generated session transcriptions and summaries that they generate. So we partner with them on many leading events where you essentially have a recording mechanism that captures just key content in real time from speakers, and then we'll be able to easily ingest that in almost, within seconds, and be able to generate a session summary on that. And we've seen great results in our customers being able to leverage those summaries, in round trip or in trip reporting when they talk about some of the key areas that they walked away with from an event. And then we've also seen it being used on LinkedIn and other social channels where they can push out just key things that they learned at a particular session or an event. So I've seen some really great results there early on.
Well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, that last one sounds really cool too. Well, thank you. Really appreciate you sharing all of that and sharing your tech stack. I think our viewers and listeners will gain a lot from that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And in closing, Ashleigh, would you like to let listeners know how they can find you?
Sure. You feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me at Ashleigh Cook on LinkedIn. Would love to connect, and also feel free to visit rainfocus.com. Would love to connect with you there as well.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well,
This has been great, Ashleigh. We really appreciate you joining us on the show today. I think our listeners and viewers got a lot of great information from this conversation. Thank you again. And I'm going to let Jessie close it out for us.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
For sure.
Yes, thank you, Ashleigh. And for our listeners, I'm going to throw a QR code up on the screen. We were just talking about QR codes on this episode, but we've got one here and you can scan it. Otherwise, if you're just listening on audio only, just go to bedex.com and click on Talk to an Expert. But we want to help you, get powered by Bedex. And what I mean by that is, well, first of all, Bedex is the industry's leading identity graph, and its trusted foundation is powering some of the top ad tech and martech platforms across the ecosystem. So if you go to bedex.com, you'll see a lot of the logos on there, logos that you will recognize. They're major brands, and our comprehensive identity resolution drives results across every channel. So from precision and ad targeting and website visitor retargeting to direct mail campaigns, lead generation, and turning anonymous website traffic into actionable customer intelligence. That's all stuff that we can help you with. So you want to make sure that you have good, clean data, and that's where Bedex comes in. And so whether you're looking to enhance your targeting, you can recover your abandoned carts better, scale your lead generation efforts. There's so much more you can do to maximize your marketing efforts and your performance with better data. So Bedex delivers the most accurate identity resolution in the industry. We eliminate the bots, the bad data, the waste that is just taking up all of your marketing budget. And so, yeah, if you work with us, we will help improve your return on ad spend for sure. So join some of the leading platforms that trust Bedex to power their success. And like I said, you can go to bedex.com and click on Talk to an Expert, or just click that or scan that QR code that you're seeing on the screen. Other than that, thanks again, Ashleigh, for joining.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Take care.